According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 2019 had the most recorded electrical fatalities since 2011. Of the 166 electrocutions, 43% occurred within the construction industry. The following scenario outlines a tragic yet preventable fatality that occurred when an industrial crane contacted a high-voltage power line on an Army installation. The mishap involved a Logistics Readiness Center maintenance crew, whose mission was to provide crane support to wheeled vehicle mechanics as they conducted a controlled exchange of axles between two load handling system HEMTs. The HEMT being worked on was parked in the LRC motor pool beneath power lines that hung approximately 38 feet above the ground. The LRC maintenance supervisor designated a 15-ton industrial crane with a 40-foot boom, one forklift, and 2 Department of the Army civilians to complete the task. The LRC had recently developed a job hazard analysis to mitigate risks associated with crane operations. It instructed workers to check designated work areas for power lines and conduct site surveys to identify potential risks and hazards during all crane operations. The JHA indicated electrical shock as a potential hazard and listed recommended precautions and personal protective equipment requirements. However, the JHA was not used. At 0800 on the day of the mishap, the wheel vehicle mechanics moved their tools to the LRC motor pool and started to prepare the HEMT axle for removal. The crane operator surveyed the site and mentally noted that the HEMT sat beneath energized power lines and was clearly within the prohibited zone for crane operations established by OSHA. However, he was confident he could maneuver the crane into a position to assist the mechanics in the exchange of the axles. The crane operator first removed the LHS hook arm from the rear of the HEMT to gain access to the axle. Having avoided direct contact with the power lines while removing the hook arm, the crane operator became inattentive to the power line hazard. The crane operator then used the crane to lift the HEMT, so the mechanics could remove the intermediate axle. Following the removal of the functional axle, the mechanics began to install the broken axle onto the deadline HEMT. The operator exited the crane while it was still under load and maneuvered a forklift to place the damaged axle underneath the elevated HEMT. The mechanics reinstalled all necessary axle bolts to complete the axle swap. After a short break, the mechanics placed all tires back on the HEMT and secured their tools. The final step to complete the task was to place the LHS hook arm back onto the HEMT. The crane assistant rigged the load with an alloy metal chain sling. When the crane operator provided his assistant with the required tagline to stabilize the load while avoiding direct contact with the hook arm, the assistant handed it back, stating he did not need the tagline for the short distance they would move the load. The crane operator again maneuvered the crane boom within the prohibited zone of the power lines. Once the load was off the ground and steady by the assistant's left hand, the assistant gave the operator the signal to raise the boom. As the crane shifted, the tip of the crane boom contacted the power lines. As a result, 7.2 kilovolts of electricity transferred from the power line to the crane's cable and traveled through the metal alloy chain sling to the load, where the electricity entered the assistant's body through his hand. The crane operator immediately lowered the boom away from the power line and saw his assistant collapse to the ground. The electrical shock caused fatal injuries to the crane assistant, minor injuries to the operator, and damaged the crane's cable.